It's 1912, and what you are seeing is the very first Football World Championship final caught on film. Conventional wisdom has it that England have been world champions just the once, in 1966. But within this unique footage lies the secret of two World Championship titles long forgotten. When England beat Denmark in the final of the 1912 Stockholm Olympic football tournament, the World Championship was theirs for a second time. In these pre-World Cup days, when the Olympic football tournament was the world's premier competition, England were the original masters, the inventors, and the most influential nation in the evolution of the game. The English may have invented the game of football, but much of the early innovation came from Scotland. And it was against the backdrop of the docks and industry on the River Clyde in Glasgow that the first revolution in football happened, at this very first international match between Scotland and England in 1872.
Scotland had developed a passing running game through their oldest team, Queen's Park. Whereas in England, they predominantly played a dribbling game where individual skill was the only thing that counted. So you can imagine the culture shock in the first game, where an English player would have come up to a Scot, and the Scot would have kicked the ball away. And the English players must have thought, what's he doing? So everywhere you go in the world now, you're looking at teams that pass and run. And that game came out of the West of Scotland cricket ground, St Andrew's Day 1872. The Scots invented it.
Further south, in the Lancashire conurbation, based around the River Mersey and the port of Liverpool, the Scots were hugely influential in helping popularise the game. The first English champions, Preston North End, were famous for their Scots professors. By the time of this Preston Wolves match in 1905, football had become the entertainment for the working class. Crowds of up to 30,000 were not uncommon. There was nowhere in the world that came close. Understandably, when FIFA had been formed the year before, the British were less than interested.
There is, in a sense, a cultural and political isolationism, and football is just part of society and reflects society. So the British Empire was at its height when FIFA was founded. So you can imagine the four home nations thinking, well, why should we join FIFA? We invented the game. What on earth could they tell us about how to play the game?
Mais les Anglais étaient dans leur île, étaient les plus forts. C'était le football et les joueurs les meilleurs de très loin par rapport à tout le monde entier, parce qu'ils étaient en avance de 50 ans. Parce que les footballs là-bas étaient déjà très populaires et que la qualité des joueurs anglais était exceptionnelle à l'époque. Donc les Anglais, dans leur île, ne voulaient pas se mêler au continent européen.
League football was the staple diet for supporters, but the allure of watching or playing for your country remained strong. In 1907, with the Scots wearing the Rosebery colours of pink and primrose, the annual match was recorded on film for the first time. It was part of the Home International Championship involving Wales and Ireland, the oldest international tournament, dating back to 1884. In 1908, a second tournament was added to the calendar, when football was included as an official sport at the Olympics for the first time, in the London Games of that year. Great Britain was represented by the England amateur side, then the equal of the professionals. This England team not only became the first official world champions at the London Olympics, but they also played a pioneering role in the spread of football around Europe. The tours by the English amateurs were fundamental to the development of the game in continental Europe. The Central European cities of Prague, Budapest and Vienna were especially favoured destinations. In Italy, the English influence was also strong. And at the time of this Italy-France International in 1912, the most important figure in Italian football was a man called Vittorio Pozzo, who had learned about the game while studying in England. Pozzo was the coach of the Italian team at the Stockholm Olympics, where he met an Austrian called Hugo Meisel. Together, they would change the course of football in Europe.
Nasce una lite terribile nella Federazione Italiana Gioco Calcio, si dimettono tutti, l'Italia era iscritta, allora dicono a Vittorio Pozzo una settimana prima: porti la squadra a lei che sa le lingue. Capirai, no? Mica porti la squadra a lei perché si intende di calcio, porti la squadra a lei che sa le lingue. Erano stati scelti 22 giocatori, c'era già il canonico elenco dei 22, rispondono alla convocazione, pensate, soltanto in 15.
At the Stockholm Olympics, Meisel invited an English coach called Jimmy Hogan to Vienna. Hogan was to have a profound effect on football in Central Europe, helping to develop a distinctive style that became known as the Danubian School. In this pre-war amateur era, England remained unrivaled. The Olympic final may have been the World Championship, but the FA Cup final at the old Crystal Palace was still the greatest sporting spectacle on earth. In 1913, a world record crowd of 121,000 came to see the two great club sides of the era, Aston Villa and Sunderland. During his stay in England, Pozzo had been greatly influenced by the passion and the physical nature of the game, which was in contrast to how most continentals played.
Ammirava quel tipo di gioco maschio, vigoroso, però non violento. Il calcio per lui, l'aveva imparato in Inghilterra, il calcio per lui è un moralista, perché permette la forza, ma non la violenza, non l'attacco proditorio, non la frode.
It was from the three great cities of Central Europe, Prague, Budapest and Vienna, that the first challenge to Britain as the major European superpower came. With two of the three cities lying on the River Danube, the distinctive and successful style of football that these cities produced took its name from the great river. Prior to the Great War, all three cities had been united under the Habsburg monarchy, but with different languages and customs, it had never been a happy alliance. On the football pitch, the rivalry was intense. Millions died in the Great War fighting over a small strip of land on the Western Front. But for the peoples of Central Europe, the end of the war saw the whole-scale redrawing of national boundaries. Czechoslovakia, with its capital in Prague, was created as a political entity for the first time, and football became an ever more powerful expression of this nationalist feeling. In 1919, an unofficial Czechoslovakian team took part in the Allied Games at the Pershing Stadium in France, where they beat Belgium, the United States and Canada on the way to the final. A year later, the Czechoslovaks would lose to host Belgium in the final of the Antwerp Olympics. But here, they beat host France to win the title. Outside of Britain, Prague had one of the most sophisticated club networks on mainland Europe. Sparta Prague